Hey Maria, how's it going?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. What's up today?
Well, the question of the day: how soon after someone purchases a property do they have to occupy, and what does the rent back have to do with this?
Okay, yeah. So basically, I think we're talking about owner occupied. We're concerned with owner occupied, and we know that there's a lot of issues out there right now with people saying they're going to occupy or not occupy, and you know what the ownership is going to be. So on owner occupied, and I'm going to go out there and say on all the programs, there's some nuances out there, but on the majority of the programs, you have to move in within 60 days if your mortgage program is a primary residence owner occupied mortgage program. So you have that 60 days to do whatever you need to do. You know, say the current owner isn't able to move out for another 30 days. You're fine. You know, as long as you're in that house within that 60-day from the closing date. You know, people always say, well, we're not really sure. The people aren't really sure. It might be a day or two later. I don't think it's going to be a big deal if it's a couple days one way or the other, or, you know, God forbid the people end up not moving out and now you have to evict them. It's the intent. The intent was to move in within 60 days. You can't help it if somebody didn't move out. You can't move in with them. So if you have to go through the eviction program, you're not going to be penalized for that. But the intent has to be that you're going to owner occupy that
You were the
property.
owner. You're
You're
planning
going
on
to
occupying.
occupy it. Yeah, primary as your primary residence. So that's a primary residence. You need to occupy within 60 days of closing. Obviously, we prefer you close on it and it's vacant and you're able to move into that the next day or that day. You know, you always worry about, you know, somebody who you don't really know living in it and you're expecting them to move out at a date in the future, even though you've already purchased the house. So they have their money for the house and they're not moved out yet. You know, there's no guarantee that they're going to truly move out when you say move out.
That's
It's a
that
little
seems
scary to me.
strange. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little scary to me. You know, you really have to trust the whole, you know, everybody who's working for you. You really have to know what the situation is. You know, a lot of times it's just that the house they're buying isn't ready yet, and you can see that, and you ask for the proof. Oh, okay, yep, they're under contract over here. Very cool. You know, where I think it would get more scary, especially in this market, is if it's a renter, not the person who owns it. You
I
know,
see.
and they're being kicked out because their house is, you know, the house is being sold, and now they can't find somewhere else to live.
And now, so okay, let's just break that down.
Yeah.
I'm the buyer, you're the seller.
Yep.
You don't occupy the
Yeah.
property that I'm buying.
Right.
You're renting it out.
Yeah.
It's your due diligence as the seller, I would imagine, to tell the renters, hey, house is being sold. You have
Correct.
let's say 60 days to move out
Yep.
from
Yep.
here. Move over. You're saying that there will be some cases where those renters either choose not to move out or
Yeah.
perhaps the owner didn't tell them. I mean,
Correct.
that is kind of
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah, it is scary, and it worries me. And I have a situation right now where that came up, and I strongly encourage this client to talk to his attorney because now that's a legal issue. You know,
Right.
you have somebody who's living there that doesn't own it, probably isn't paying you rent anymore,
Right.
but won't move out. So now you have no place to live potentially. You now have to spend money to evict that person because they're not doing it on their own. So now you have to start.
Whoa.
So you know, I hate to go to the extreme, but I think it's important to think about all situations
Right.
when that comes up. Oh yeah, it's great. You know, they're just going to stay for another few weeks, whatever. Make sure there's an intent there. Make sure you know what the whole situation is. You know, that their house isn't built yet. They're building a new house. It's not going to be built. You know, closed for another 30 days. Whatever it is. You know, what is the true reason why they can't move out in time? And would it be better to delay the closing? You know what? I'm not feeling this. I'm not feeling so good about these people that they're not going to move out. You know what? Let's hold off on the closing. You know?
So after closing, it's completely on the buyer to.
Yeah. Yep. Seller's done. You had that transaction. The seller is now
Whoa.
gone. You bought that house knowing whatever the situation is. Yeah.
So this brings up a couple questions. What if you didn't know that that was the situation? What would the seller?
Yeah. So that's why one of the
involvement
reasons
be?
why you do a walkthrough.
Right.
You know, you're going to do a walkthrough the day before or the morning of, and this is more of a real estate, you know, question. But you know, you're going to want to go and make sure that person's moved out, and if that
Okay.
person isn't moved out, you're putting the brakes on.
Okay.
You know?
Is your money protected at that point? Any money? Or-
I am going to refrain from answering that question.
Okay.
My gut tells me the seller isn't delivering the property as promised, so I'm thinking, as you know, in a contract that is not a
Okay.
good thing, but definitely a question for your attorney. And
For the attorney.
it's, these are questions that people should be asking their attorney
Absolutely. I
upfront.
mean, these are things
Yeah.
that I wouldn't even think.
Yeah.
What about this is a really weird question, and I don't know what role this plays or if you even know, but what about like squatters' rights?
Yeah,
Isn't that a thing?
it is a
Especially
thing.
COVID,
It is a thing. I have no idea how that, and because
right?
they're there illegally to begin with, but they're there.
Well, no, they're not there illegally
Oh,
to
they've
begin
just
with.
been there so long.
No. I mean, no. What I mean is, seller has it's renting the exact scenario.
Yeah.
They're expected to be out. They've been told at that point. At what point of the transaction? I'm imagining after closing, they are no longer renters, but they're choosing to stay.
Right.
Then they become squatters.
Yeah.
What rights do they have? Because squatters do have rights technically, but in
Yeah.
this case, I mean that's a
They
really
don't.
unusual.
I
They don't.
wouldn't imagine that they have any rights at all because they're not paying rent.
At that point, right?
Right. So I think again a legal thing, but I think a contract is assumed when you pay money. So if they're not paying rent, then there's no contract. So now you're not under contract. So you're just living somewhere that you're living
not
there
supposed to
legally
be.
at that point. Yeah.
Oh,
Good questions for an attorney. We should get an attorney in here one week. And,
yeah, for sure.
And bounce these questions.
Yeah, because these aren't things that you would think
You
of
don't,
really.
and people don't ever think these are going to happen.
Well, okay, I have another good question actually. This now is getting my wheels kind of turning.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm the buyer and I want to buy a multifamily property.
Yep.
Okay. Let's say that I'm going to occupy one of the units
Yep.
and the other unit is currently rented, but
Yep.
I don't want them to rent there anymore.
Yep.
I mean, again, these are legal issues. If there's a current lease that exists, you
Yeah.
can't just kick them out if a current lease exists. Or how does
Yeah.
that work if your
Yeah.
ownership is changing?
So again, let's get an attorney in because I think these are better answered by an attorney. But my limited knowledge on it is that a lease terminates with the sale of a property.
Mm.
So that lease is now up for negotiation. If the people want to stay, then they're entering into a new lease with the new owner, and the new owner can change the terms if they want. But I am pretty sure, based on just osmosis over the years, that that lease ends with the current owner with the sale.
Yeah, then it gets into kind of like not just legal, but like moral obligations, right?
Yep.
Because like, what if the seller didn't let them know, hey, like
Absolutely.
I'm selling the property?
Absolutely.
They didn't. I mean, it's just like kind of,
Yep.
maybe you didn't want to rent it out. Maybe you wanted to have your sister live
Correct.
there.
Correct. And I see that often, and it really starts at the very beginning when somebody's like, well, yeah, they're under contract and we're working through the mortgage, and I'll be like, well, what unit are you going to be occupying? And they're like, well, I've only seen 2 of the 3 units because the tenants in the 3rd unit won't let us see it yet. We already have a hostile situation.
Right.
How is that going to improve or get worse throughout this process? Do you expect them to move out? Don't you? There's obviously a communication issue here. So there's, people think buying a multifamily house is a great idea, and it is. It's a great way to have somebody cover a substantial part of your mortgage payment, but they are more work. They're more work on the agent's part because you're dealing with 3 units, and if any of them are still occupied, you're dealing with those tenants, and you have all those things. Do we want to keep the tenants? Do we want to raise their rent? Do we want to kick them out? Start with new tenant? There's a lot more going on with the multifamily, but.
Right.
Yeah, those are all legit things that people need to think through when they're thinking of looking
For
at
sure.
buying
Well, and then
multi-
the last situation would be buying a multifamily that you don't intend to occupy.
Right.
It's pure
right,
investment.
pure investment. Yep.
Let's say some of the units are occupied, just kind of dealing with that. It's really,
Yeah.
like you said, you're dealing a lot with the attorney and the lawyer.
Yeah.
Wanting to make sure
Yeah.
all your ducks are in a
Yeah,
row.
because if you have a lot of times now, people are buying a multifamily house as an investment, and they have renters lined up, and these renters are going to pay $2,000 a
Right.
month for each unit, where the current ones are only paying $1,500, and these people aren't going to pay $2,000, so now they all have to get moved out so that he can move his new tenants into these properties. So you're dealing with the logistics of making sure everybody's out before you close. Because again, an angry person is not going to be like, oh, yep, I'm going to move out. Yep, you need this one vacant. I'm going to be out of here on time. They're going to take their sweet time.
Yeah.
There's nothing to lose on their part.
Right, especially because if rent is $1,500, let's just
Right.
use that as I mean, they're thinking, where am I gonna move?
Right.
Like anyway, rent's
Correct.
gonna go
It's
up
right.
no matter where
and
I
it's hard to
go.
find a rent, even if you can find one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, we would probably see this if, again, somebody's intending to buy a investment property, multiple units, and converting that into a short-term rental, like an Airbnb or a
Yeah.
VRBO.
Yeah.
Tenants are living there. You gotta
Yeah,
get
you
out.
wanna
I
get
want
out.
it. It's
You
a
wanna get
short-term
out.
rental now.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, and that's become a lot more popular over the past couple of years. We do have products that do allow for that now, which is kind of cool. Up until recently, we were kind of stuck with that because the underwriting guidelines didn't accommodate short-term rental. It was always a 1 year lease, 1 year lease, 1 year lease. So it's kind of nice that we can accommodate that now. But same situation. You've got to have those people out. If this is your plan, whatever it is, I'm going to be renting this out weekly because they live by the beach and they're going to make a ton more money if they rent it out by the week.
Oh yeah.
They got to get those renters out.
Mm.
And these people usually who buy these houses are true investors. They know what they're doing. They've looked at the numbers, and those numbers start on day one from
Right.
the time they take title to that property.
Oh,
So if
absolutely.
somebody hasn't moved out yet, they're already losing money.
Right.
And God forbid that person never moves out. You have to evict them, and it's a
Wow.
long process. It's
Yeah.
months to get that person out. So you're paying legal fees, and you're not getting rental income coming in. So you're
Wow, you're
You're losing.
losing money.
yeah. So I mean, my recommendation, and again, I'm not an attorney, so I can't say legally, but my recommendation always is to check out your avenues, make sure you know what's going on, and maybe just delay that closing a little bit until everybody's moved out the way you want them moved out.
Yeah. I mean, this just speaks to like why it's so important to have a
Have
good
a good
attorney,
attorney.
a good agent, and a good lender.
Yeah.
So everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, you definitely want an attorney who has a lot of real estate experience. You have somebody who does litigation. They're not going to think of all these ins and outs because they've never had anything come at them that's blown up on the buyer's face. That's
Right.
how we all learn everything is by experience. So
And often
um,
it's through a bad
it's through bad
experience.
experience. It is. Yeah, but yeah, there's a lot to think about. And you also have going back to the occupancy. You have to owner occupied. You also have a second home.
Right.
So a second home is considered someplace that you occupy at some point throughout the year, but not all the time. It's not your primary, but it's not investment. You're not renting it out to somebody. That doesn't mean you can't have family and friends stay there or whatever, but you're not doing Airbnb. You're not doing a month-to-month lease. You're not doing an annual lease with somebody. And it has to make sense that it's a second home. If you live at 123 Main Street and you're going to buy 125 Main Street and you're trying to say it's a second home, it's not going to work.
Right.
It has to be whatever that distance is away from your current property, where you live as your primary residence, or
It just doesn't
it
make
has
sense.
to be a
right?
vacation sort of an
Right.
atmosphere. Yes,
Like you live in
Yes.
Shelton, you're buying in Madison, which is
right.
near
It's on the
water.
beach, right, or you have a camper and you're buying a piece of land to put your camper on, something like that,
Right.
whatever it is. It just has to make sense that it's a second home. If you live in this beautiful 3,000 square foot house on this cul-de-sac and you're buying a 4-family, in the city that's further away from your job, probably not going to be your primary. It doesn't mean it's not going to be, because there are cases, and I've done them. Prove to me why this will be your primary, and there have been situations where it is for whatever reason.
Right.
But it has to make sense. At the end of the day, it has to make sense. And then it's the investment property. You're buying it strictly as investment. All real estate's an investment, but you're not living in it as your primary. It's not your second home. It's totally going to be rented out. From the day you buy it, it's going to be rented out. It's always going to be rented out. And that's the intent, is that it's investment. The reason it becomes important, and not to get into too many guidelines and stuff, but the rates are different.
Yeah.
Primary, second home, investment properties, especially investment multi-properties, the rates get higher.
Down payment.
Down
requirements.
payment is different. And sometimes, I've been getting these calls a lot recently. They don't currently own a property, and they tell me that the property they're going to buy is going to be investment because they need the rental income to qualify for the mortgage. Well, are you really going to be renting this out, or aren't you? It doesn't make sense. So a lot of the programs restrict you from using rental income if you don't already own a primary.
I see. So what you're saying is,
It's kind of like
I
the
live with
reverse.
mom.
Yep.
like I don't pay rent, but my income is really low. I want to buy a single family residence, call it an investment property
Yep.
because I want to use the income, the estimated income from that investment property
Exactly.
to qualify for the
Correct.
mortgage.
Correct.
Oh, and so, but
Correct.
after I close, there's potential.
You're
I'm
gonna
just
move in.
planning on moving in.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's mortgage fraud. It's against the law. The lender could show up at your house the next day, knock on your door, and say, you know what, we're recalling the mortgage. You just lied to us.
Whoa.
You have 30, 60, whatever it is, days to give us the money back. Figure it out. It actually is the biggest form of mortgage fraud right now. People saying that it's going to be investment and it's not because they need the additional income to qualify.
It
So,
seems risky to even do that.
Yeah.
I'm not conservative in a lot of areas
Yeah.
of my life, but
that one,
in terms of qualifying people to buy a
Yeah.
house, it's like we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Any number of things can happen.
you got to do the right thing.
Yeah, man, you can't be
Yeah.
like risking it. This is a big deal. Don't
Yeah,
be putting yourself in a compromising situation if you don't qualify
Yep.
right now.
there's a reason.
Just wait.
Yeah. Yeah.
Save some more money.
Correct.
It doesn't.
Yeah, have you,
Makes
your
sense.
income comes up, pay some of your debt down. But just think about that. You just needed that rental income to
Right.
qualify to buy that house, and now the lender's saying, "No, you need to pay us back this money." Well, where are you going to get that money from? You don't qualify for a mortgage without that rental income.
Oh,
Are you going to
boy.
go to somebody else and lie to somebody else
Right.
that again it's rental? It's going to be rental income. So, you just do the right thing.
I mean, full disclosure, I have thought many times throughout my time working in mortgages
Mm.
that there seems like there are so many ways that people can lie. But I've been amazed over and over again with how underwriting
Yes,
and processors discover these
they
things.
dig in.
Yeah,
they
it's
dig in
crazy. It's
so
really
deep.
hard to lie. So
It
if you
is.
do get away with it,
Yeah,
initially there's
Good
a
luck.
chance you're going to
Yeah.
get caught.
correct.
Right.
Correct. And people do stupid things. They'll buy something saying it's investment and then they'll change their mailing address to that property for their mortgage.
Hello.
Yeah, come on, just
Yeah, like
but again, they just, committed a crime, so maybe, they're not the smartest, but it's a tough market right now. So people are, doing whatever they can to get into a property. Yeah, the rate's higher, but that rental income helps them qualify and gets them to be able to buy that property. So they don't care. They figure they'll refinance it down the road when rates come down and their income goes up more or whatever it is. But I will have no part of it. I've walked away from many, many, many loans over the years that I just had not a good feeling on.
yeah, for sure.
You know what?
You have to trust your gut.
You go somewhere. You do whatever you want. I'm having nothing to do with this. My realtor told me to tell you
Right,
that
right.
this is what it's gonna
Yeah.
be. No, let's just do the right thing.
Right. Like, sorry,
Yeah, I
but
don't think that's really what your realtor said because
yeah.
nobody would give that advice. Like, I think maybe you did a Google search or something, and I don't know. People worry me for the most part. 99.999% of the people are honest, but there's that's percentage that brings the rest down. and,
Yeah,
you
because
know.
I mean, it is such a big purchase. It's like
Yeah.
I'm glad that they're honest. There's like this fear, and you should be scared to lie about these things
Yeah.
because you're taking on a pretty big
It
responsibility.
is. And some of it I think is innocent. Some people don't realize it's a big deal. You're like, well, can't we just say it's going to be investment? Like, no, we can't. We have to say what it is, And I have that conversation with people because more than one person has said that to me. Like, it has to be what it is.
Right.
We have to be honest about it. If you're going to live there, then that's how we're doing it. If you're not going to live there, then that's how we're going to do it.
Right.
It's as cut and dry as that.
Yeah.
If they hum and haw, well, I'm not really sure. Well, go back to your drawing board and decide what you're going to do, and then let me know.
Right. And I mean, you're great at helping problem solve. You're always trying to look for a way to make it work, like either getting a gift, getting a cosigner.
Pay on some
There's
debt,
ways,
whatever it
right?
is.
Exactly. Like increase your credit score.
Yeah.
There's many ways to help. And I think we definitely live, unfortunately, in a time where it's like, I want it now. I want it now, and
We
by
do.
any means necessary. But it's like
We do.
it's just people sometimes need a reality check. It's not really gonna
Yeah.
work in your favor. And even if it does work out now, there's something's bound to happen down
Yes.
the line.
Yeah.
So-
There's a reason for everything. There's a reason why we have all our checks and balances, and at the end of the day, it's to protect the buyer and it's to protect the lender.
Yeah.
We don't want to see you go into foreclosure. Now you moved into that house that you said was going to be investment, and you really don't have enough money to pay that
You
mortgage.
can't afford
what,
it.
What have you done now? Now you've ruined your credit. It's a 3 to to 7-year turnaround time before you can get a normal, FHA or Fannie mortgage. So what have you done?
Was it worth it?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not.
It's not. Just
wait, be
Yeah.
patient, see
yeah,
what happens.
Be patient. Let's talk. Let's work together. Let's figure out a solution to
Yeah.
the problem. It may not be today. It may be 6 months or a year from now. But let's figure it out to do it the right way.
I agree.
Do it the right way.
Do it the right way, people.
Yeah. It's as easy as that, right?
It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. ABC.